your gut microbes and your gut bacteria's favourite food is fibre.
I would sum my mission as trying to change the food system.
Just because you've eaten like 3 slices of cake, it doesn't immediately show up on your hips.
Is this meal going to nourish my body? Is this workout going to nourish my body?
Either 90% of your health comes from the day-to-day cooking.
My food philosophy has always been about crowding in rather than cutting out, and I think
only 2% of nutrition and health information on TikTok is accurate.
This is Catch-Ups in My Kitchen, the catch-up you need every week in order to look, feel and be the best version of yourself. Join me in my kitchen every week as I speak to a new guest about all things food, health and wellness. Whether it's a specialist in their field, an inspiring story, or just a big girly catch-up full of all the recommendations, tips and advice. In my kitchen, we talk about it all. Hey guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode with me, Georgia Simmons, host of the podcast. In my kitchen this week, I am joined by many a guest. I am bringing you a little compilation of some of my favourite moments with guests where we really hone in and talk about nutrition. I've gone back through some of the archives of our conversations in the kitchen and aimed to bring out some of the more kind of contrasting conversations so we can explore different diets, different lifestyles, different ways of being healthy. But the overall message is to show that there is not a one size fits all, and ultimately you have to listen to you, your body, and what works and feels best for you. I really hope you love this kind of blast from the past, going back through some of the old episodes and some of the great conversations we've had. And I hope this provides you a bit of interesting insight on how to feel your healthiest from a nutritional standpoint. Now let's go and explore some of the conversations I've had in the kitchen. We're going to start with Dr. Emily Prpa, who breaks down gut health in such a clear, science-backed way. Then we'll move into my conversation with Niall Kiddle, which many of you loved, where we look at food quality, the food system, farms, nature, routine, and going back to basics. After that, we'll hear from Bonnie Weddell, who talks a lot about nourishment, plant-based eating, hormonal acne, and listening to your body. And finally, we'll end with Madeleine, who has been in the wellness industry for over 10 years, and she brings such a grounded perspective on what actually lasts and what actually matters. The goal of this episode is not to tell you exactly what to eat. It's to help you think better, choose better, and hopefully feel less overwhelmed by all the noise. So let's start where so many health conversations start now, the gut. We all know that gut health is so important. We all know it's our second brain. Therefore, I think it's a very good place to start. In this conversation with Dr. Emily Prpa, she explains why gut health has become such a huge topic and also why we need to be careful. Because when something becomes trendy, it also becomes really easy to market badly, exaggerate, or turn it into a quick fix. And what I loved about this episode with Emily Prpa is that she doesn't make gut health sound scary or complicated. She brings back the basics, and they are fiber, hydration, movement, stress, sleep, and consistency.
Great first question. And this idea that, our gut is sort of thinking, you're saying, listen to our gut, these gut feelings. There's actually a little bit more science in there than we used to just think. I don't know about you, but have you ever made decisions more based on your gut and what your body's telling you rather than actually what your brain is telling you? And actually your gut is now referred to as your second brain. And there has been so much research over the last really kind of 2 decades, really showing us that the gut isn't just merely digesting food, which is what we used to think it was just doing, but actually it may hold the key to unlock so many of the health concerns that we experience today. And the reason why that research is showing that is because we are now able to measure our gut microbiome. And that is the collection of these bacteria, but also other microbes like fungi, yeasts, even viruses that are living in our digestive system. And we're starting to piece together just what they are doing. And if we think back to even when we were evolving as humans, we evolved on a microbial planet. So microbes are absolutely everywhere. And as our immune system was developing, it was developing alongside the microbes that we were being exposed to. So as humans, we are actually more bacteria than we are human. So we're kind of like this hybrid species, okay? And we're constantly interacting with these microbes. And what we now know is that they are communicating, and such a pivotal role in our health in terms of communicating with our immune system, our brain, our skin, our hormones. They can impact our sleep. The list goes on and on. And now really over these last 2 decades, we're calling the gut this kind of like forgotten organ, and we're at the tip of the iceberg, but it's incredibly exciting looking at the effect of what types of bacteria are in your gut and the effect that that can then have on your health and even mental well-being as well.
I love that explanation because it immediately makes gut health feel bigger than just bloating. It's not just my stomach feels uncomfortable. It's part of a much bigger communication system in the body. But the biggest question is, okay, if the gut matters that much, what do we actually feed it? Like, there's a lot of noise around gut health, but how do we make our gut health better?
So there isn't a silver bullet, and I know we all want them, and particularly in the wellness space, we're constantly being bombarded with take this for your gut. It's the new trend, isn't it? Absolutely, it's the new buzzword. When it comes to diet, I would say that your gut microbes and your gut bacteria's favorite food is fiber. So fiber is found in all plant foods, and it's really the backbone to them. It's a type of non-digestible carbohydrate, which is a fancy way of saying, as humans, we can't digest this stuff. We do not produce the enzymes that can break it down. So when you consume fiber, so in plant foods, it's things like fruits and veggies, of course, but also whole grains, legumes, so all the beans, pulses, lentils, as well as nuts and seeds. What happens is, because we don't break it down, that fiber stays intact throughout our digestive system until it reaches the last part around the colon. And the colon is where the majority of your gut microbes live. And they go to town, they break the fibers down in a process called fermentation. And when they do that, they produce these really useful substances called short-chain fatty acids. So short-chain fatty acids can then be absorbed into the bloodstream, and they can go off and have really anti-inflammatory effects in the body. And some can even cross the blood-brain barrier, this protective fortress against our brain, and they can then have sort of effects in the brain as well, like affecting neuroinflammation. But we're still piecing together exactly all of that, but we absolutely know that feeding them with fiber creates this kind of rainforest. If you imagine a rainforest, it's filled with lots of different plants and species, birds, an ecosystem very much in harmony and in balance. By feeding your gut microbes with fiber, you're able to create that living ecosystem inside of you. And that's really what we are striving for when we feed our gut microbes, is we want this really diverse ecosystem inside of us. And fiber is a great route to go down, first of all.
This is such a good reminder that gut health doesn't have to start with an expensive supplement. It can start with more variety on your plate. And this is where the 30 plants a week conversation comes in. Not as a strict rule, but as a really helpful way to think about diversity.
One way in which you can do that is by counting plant points. So for those people that might not know about plant points, it's when you, 1 point goes towards eating one of those food groups that I mentioned. So whole grains, nuts and seeds, legumes, and fruits and vegetables. And every time you have one, you get a point on the board, don't you? Different colors count. But the research really where that was born from was the American Gut Microbiome Project. And it showed that individuals who ate up to 30 different plants a week had a far more diverse gut microbiome, so that rainforest, compared to individuals who only ate 10. So it can be a great way. Some people don't like to track, so I like to just say to people, maybe just encourage a bit more diet diversity. Like,
what I really appreciated here is that Emily doesn't say go from 0 to 30 overnight. In fact, she says the opposite, because if you suddenly flood your diet with loads of fiber when your body isn't used to it, you might feel worse before you feel better.
So the first thing is to explain why that happens. If you go all hell for leather after listening to this podcast and you're eating like 5 grams and you're like, here we go, I'm ready to clock 30. Well, I hope this conversation inspires you, but remember the motto of low and slow. Because when you do that, you will quite literally get a a traffic jam in your digestive tract, because the microbes that are down there at the moment, they might not be very diverse. So you might not have many of them that are skillful enough at the moment to break down the bacteria. However, as you start feeding them a little bit slower with this fiber, they're then able to recruit sort of more team members, more good bacteria down there. And so then once they've sort of adapted to the new demand of fiber that you are consuming with slow increments, you'll find that you get that smooth, symptomless digestion. You can kind of think of it as like, if say a new coffee shop opens down in Battersea Power Station and, might just have like 2 employees, and then all of a sudden you've got this huge long line of customers coming through the door. They're not going to be, the employees aren't going to be that efficient at kind of getting that customer line through and happy. Instead, though, once they start, banking a couple of checks, they're able to recruit new employees, then that line is going to flow so much easier and everyone's going to be far happier and less grumpy. So it's that kind of analogy when you think of digestion, and particularly for high fiber foods.
This part is so important because I think a lot of people try to be healthy, but then they feel bloated and then think healthy food doesn't work for me. But sometimes the issue isn't the food, it's the pace. It's the all or nothing approach. I am going to throw everything at this. I'm going to flood my system with plants and diversity, and then realize that it's too much, and then go the complete opposite direction and stop doing everything. It's not an all or nothing approach. It is gradual. So this episode is all about making healthy eating easier to stick to and not feel so overwhelming. Therefore, I think it's important to highlight a phrase that Emily used in this episode, which is science washing, where companies use loads and loads of words to confuse the consumer and basically just bring the cloth over our eyes by using words and ingredients that we just don't understand, and it just makes it so confusing. We then moved into the part of the conversation that I think everyone needs to hear.
So for anyone that doesn't know, science washing is kind of like greenwashing, but in the science space. It's where companies will use scientifically sounding language, like clinically tested and science-backed or evidence-based, to make their product sound more legit, but often lacks the actual scientific studies behind the product that is being sold. So I don't know whether it was COVID or what, but there is a big shift in consumers now wanting more science-backed products. You probably yourself, when you are looking for products yourself, you're like, is this evidence-based? And I just want people to be aware of some of the buzzwords that are being used and the tactics that can be used in this space. So first up, it's similar to those green powders where they kind of bung everything together, right? But they will, on their website, show, well, it's got this study and we've got this study and this study. But all those studies are based on the single ingredient. So they'll take, vitamin C, for example, and show that vitamin C is doing X, Y, Z. Whereas when you put all of those vitamins and nutrients together, and we don't know what the effect that could have on the body. Like I say, there are lots of factors involved as to whether or not you will be getting that vitamin C. And so is it actually having that effect? I would argue that maybe it isn't. I see it a lot in the probiotic space as well, with sort of multi-strain, where they'll put lots of different bacterial strains in one product, and they will, quote all of these scientific studies. None of those scientific studies are based on the product that you are being sold. Instead, it's just, single studies done on a single bacteria, and they're saying, well, look at all of this that this product can do. And I would question that actually when you put it in the form that they are selling you it, I don't think that it can hold up to the claims that they put on their website. So I want people to be aware that there was a study done last year with Dublin University and MyFitnessPal that showed that only 2% of nutrition and health information on TikTok is accurate. So 98% when you are on that platform of what you are seeing is actually completely false.
That statistic is honestly terrifying, and it doesn't mean everyone online is wrong, but it does mean we have to be more careful with who we trust. So instead of chasing every trend, lemon water, apple cider vinegar, green powders, colon cleanses, fasting, carnivore, whatever the trend is that's currently going viral at the moment, Emily brings gut health back to 5 simple pillars.
Yeah, I think definitely. Like, we've obviously talked about diet and a little bit about stress and how we need to manage it. So they're 2 key pillars. And really, we kind of talk about these 5 small habits that are part of your daily life that we very much try and communicate at Yackle as being kind of the pillars of gut health. So we've touched a lot on the diet side, lots of fiber-rich foods, experiment with fermented foods, and make sure you're staying very well hydrated, which is another pillar that we try and push because it's underrated, but it is absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Not only for our gut health, our brain health, the whole thing, but also exercise. I don't think we've talked about this, but it's actually fantastic for your gut health. So when we're talking about our gut microbiome diversity, there's lots of different types of bacteria that we want in our guts. We see that exercise can increase gut diversity independent of diet, which is amazing, I think. Also, just if you ever are sort of having some symptoms when you're digesting food, a small walk can go a long way. And, when I'm saying exercise, I'm not saying, go all hell for leather at the gym. It is, taking the stairs rather than the lifts. I know we came up the lifts, but we won't mention that.
No, that's fine.
And little small things here and there, going back to that idea of the power of small. Because after all, the bacteria in your gut, they're so small you can't even see them with your naked eye. They're all around us and we can't see them. And they're doing incredible things. They have huge amounts of power in the body. And it's the same things with the way you can look after them is by doing lots of little small things in your day. So diet, exercise, stress management. So one of the easiest ways in which, or the tool at our fingertips at all times when we are stressed, is our breath. And what our breath does is it stimulates our vagus nerve, which is the physical connection between your gut and your brain. And it's the direct, it's the quickest way we can get a signal from our gut to our brain. It's like picking up the telephone, okay? And when you do this and you stimulate your vagus nerve, in terms of the physiology of our bodies, cortisol is a stress hormone and it oversees, melatonin, our sleep hormone. So anytime that we're trying to get to sleep and we're stressed, cortisol will overpower melatonin. Whereas our vagus nerve is the only thing that will overpower our cortisol levels. And that's because it puts us into our rest and digest mode. So that's when our digestive system is just flowing a lot nicer, but also we are feeling so much more calm. So I would say stress management is a key thing for gut health.
This episode is sponsored by Zap, the ultra-fast on-demand grocery app that gets you the nicest and freshest groceries delivered to your door in minutes. I always use Zap when I forget an ingredient meal prepping or when I need some snacks for when my friends come around. Personally, my favourite thing about Zap is the quality of the products you can get on there. I can get my vegetables from Dalesford, my sourdough and crackers from Gales, as well as topping up on my favourite Reamy's banana bites, all from one place. So if, like me, you often need a quick grocery delivery, this is your sign to Zap them. And if you use the code ZAPKitchen, you will get £10 off your first 4 orders over £30. Thank you, Zap, for sponsoring the podcast. Now let's get back to the episode. I want to tell you something that I genuinely did not expect, and that is the transformational effect of mouth tape. I have always been a super light sleeper, but I've slept well. I've never snored and definitely didn't think I was a mouth breather. But I kept hearing about this deep sleep and I thought, why don't I give mouth taping a go? I'm seeing it on TikTok, let's try it. Oh my God, wow. I had never slept so well, I was completely hooked. I wanted to share it with all my friends and family, but there was one thing that I didn't love, and that was the look of it. I wasn't proud to wear it. I didn't want to take it on holiday with me. I would definitely not take it to my boyfriend's house. I was just a bit embarrassed to have that on my mouth. It looked a bit ugly. So I was like, let's create a more beautiful product that people can be proud to use and want to share with their friends and family. And that is where Healthy Habits came from. Honestly, I now can't even imagine a night without my mouth tape. And before, I'd never even heard of it, definitely didn't think it was for me. But it has changed my life and I genuinely think it could change yours. So if, like me, you sleep well, you don't think you're a mouth breather, but you're intrigued, or maybe you're a snorer, or maybe you're not really getting deep sleep, this is your sign to try mouth taping. And we have a code, CATCHUPS20, to give you 20% off your order. The link to our website is in the show notes. Let me know your thoughts. And now let's get back to the episode. Sleep, that is key. That is key.
Sleep is exhausting, isn't it? Honestly, I had a terrible night's sleep last night, and I think it's such an underrated resource when it comes to our health and even our gut health as well. So we see typically that individuals who have kind of chronic jet lag, or those that are out of their circadian rhythm. So individuals who are night shift workers, when they are awake during darkness and they're asleep during daylight hours, it offsets our internal body clock, but also our gut clock. And we see that those individuals who aren't getting enough sleep or disrupted sleep and sleep patterns, they have a tipping of the scales towards the more bad bacteria rather than the good.
This is a perfect place to move into the next conversation, because once we understand that our gut needs diversity, hydration, movement, and less stress, the next question becomes, where is our food actually coming from? Because we can talk about fiber, protein, plants, meat, supplements, and health all day. But if the food system itself is broken, then staying healthy becomes much harder than it needs to be. So next, I want to bring in my conversation with Niall Kiddle. Niall and I come from quite different food perspectives. He leans more animal-based, and I've always leaned a lot more plant-rich. But what I loved about this conversation is that underneath the details, the message is actually very, very similar. And that is, eat real food. Choose quality where you can, and reconnect with where your food comes from. This conversation is less about telling everyone to eat one exact way and more about asking a better question. How did food become so disconnected from nature?
I would sum my mission as trying to change the food system in predominantly the UK, obviously that's where I live, but also in the US and hopefully globally, because the thing that I'm the most passionate about is the quality of the food that we get, and the fact that we have to go to supermarkets, and the fact that it's ultra processed, like 90% of the food in there. I want to go back to how it was like for my great grandparents, and like the stories I hear from my grandparents telling me all about getting whole foods.
What's interesting here is that Niall isn't just talking about food as fuel, he's talking about food as a system. Farmers, supermarkets, convenience, quality, and how far we've moved from the source. And this leads into one of the strongest parts of this conversation, the idea that supplements can help, but they cannot replace your everyday food.
And so if someone's eating shit food, 90% of their health is compromised. Organized will help with 10% because it's a small dosage that you get. You're getting organs, you're getting nutrients, you're getting things that aren't accessible. It's great when you're traveling. It's great to have in your breakfast in the morning. Some people don't eat meat, and it's a really good replacement to get that meat in a way that's really delicious. They're getting all the things that their body needs. But if they're eating shit food, their health's still compromised. And I believe that 90% of your health comes from the day-to-day cooking.
This is such a good reality check, because supplements are easy to market. They're easy to buy. They feel like a shortcut. But the boring truth is that what we cook and eat most days matters a lot more than the supplements we buy. Now, this is where the conversation gets really interesting, because convenience is the main reason why the modern food system works the way it does. Most people are not choosing the supermarket because they think it's perfect. They're choosing it because it's easy. So if we want people to eat better, we also have to make better food easier to access.
How many Sainsbury's are there across the whole UK? And how many people are going to Sainsbury's? How do they get meat every single day in stock? There's barely anything out of stock when you go to supermarkets. It's just shelves filled with. And like, how does that happen? Well, we're working with nature here, so they have to do that in a way that really works against nature. And
whether someone eats meat or not, I think the bigger point here is actually quality and connection. We should know more about where our food comes from. We should care more about where our food comes from. And we should be allowed to ask better questions. This naturally led us into seasonality, because one of the clearest ways to reconnect with nature is to eat the fruit and vegetables that are in season and ask, what is in season in June? Perfect, strawberries. I'll eat more strawberries. What is actually growing right now?
So there's the nature side when it comes to like seasonality and eating local. And what's really interesting is changing the foods you eat based on the season. And it's something that's, I guess it's like I've been sort of looking into it for the last 8 to 12 months, but before that it was completely foreign to me. And when I first heard it, it sounded really weird. And now I've started practicing it. It makes so much sense to me. And in the summer, you do just eat a lot more berries, a lot more fruits. It's hot. Your body needs more electrolytes. In the winter, those don't grow. And so you rely a lot more on like bone broths, things high in fat, protein. So you eat a lot more meat. Typically, we would have eaten a lot more meat and eggs and things in the winter. And so adjusting the foods that you eat, and then looking at it from like a produce side of things, where the fruits and the vegetables that you eat are, if you make them seasonal, by doing that, I was able to just like, my gut felt so much better, because I would be eating animal based, but I'd still be eating like pineapple or like papaya, and it was part of the animal based thing. And you look at what like Paul Saladino is saying, and he's eating these pineapples, and he lives in Costa Rica, and it makes sense for him. And I'm here and getting my stuff from Tesco's, wondering why I've got gut issues, getting like shit quality fruit that's not in season, and it's been like imported from South America or whatever.
This part really stayed with me because it makes health feel less like a rule book and more like a relationship with nature. Instead of asking what is the perfect food, maybe we should ask what is in season, what is local, what feels good in my body right now. This is a big topic. What food fuels you? What gives you energy? On the topic of nature and connecting to nature, Niall talks about how this way of eating can extend the way of living.
As soon as I made that switch, I saw a huge difference. And that is just living as close to nature, or eating as close to nature as you can be. When it comes to living as close to nature, it's also simple. So someone said to me, like, what are the biggest changes that I can make to my life? I feel really fatigued. I feel tired, low energy. I get brain fog. Maybe I've got gut issues and things. The biggest thing you can do is just connecting to the earth. And it just sounds so cliche. But what I mean by that is just getting outside, being barefoot for like 15 minutes in the morning and then 15 minutes in the evening, trying to expose your belly, like your organs, to the sun, even if it's cloudy. And it's because the way that we make vitamin D, which is almost like a hormone, is very localized. So if you are outside and you've just got it on your arms or whatever, like you're making vitamin D in that area, but your organs also need that. And so that's why trying to be like topless, whatever, when you can be in the garden, it kind of just seems ridiculous, but that's how we've evolved. Like we would have just always been outside, and now we're just always indoors under blue light, and that's really disrupting circadian rhythm. And if you're tired and fatigued and things, it's generally because of your sleep, which is linked to your circadian rhythm. And we have billions of cells, like we're literally made up of billions of cells. Every single cell individually works on its own clock. And so you can imagine if you have a billion cells and they've all just aligned perfectly with, you go to bed at the same time, you wake up at the same time, you see the sunrise, you see the sunset. It's very early here in the UK, so I don't actually see the sunrise, but I get out as early as I can. That's the first thing I do, like no phone, nothing. Out. It's so simple, and it has the biggest effect.
This connects so beautifully with what Emily said about gut health, because again, we come back to the same pillars: light, sleep, movement, stress, digestion, and rhythm. It's not one magic food. It's a pattern of your life. It's a healthy lifestyle, not just a good diet. Now that brings us really nicely into our next conversation with Bonnie, because Bonnie's episode brings the focus back to the individual body, not the perfect food system or the perfect diet that fits everyone. There's not one perfect diet. There are perfect diets. So Bonnie asks, what actually nourishes me at this stage in my life? So her journey with plant-based eating, hormonal acne, and creating food content is such a good reminder that wellness is very, very personal. What works for one person might not work for another. And learning your own body is a huge part of this process. With Bonnie, I really wanted to explore the softer side of wellness. Not soft as in less important, but soft as in less rigid. Her approach is very much about balance, nourishment, plant-based food, and learning what makes her body feel good. And I think this episode is really important because it shows that health is not only about what the experts say, it's about listening to you. You are the expert of your own body.
I think the first words that come to mind for me are balance and nourish, because like everything I do within health and wellness, like pretty much every day for me, that's like the forefront of my mind. And I would say everything I do is to nourish my body. So like, is this meal going to nourish my body? Is this workout going to nourish my body? Is scrolling on TikTok for 10 minutes going to nourish my body? And sometimes it does.
I love this framing because it takes health away from punishment. It's not how do I restrict more, it's how do I nourish myself better. That means it's not about what I can take away, it's about what I can add in. That also includes movement, prioritizing rest, enjoying the process, and doing things that actually might just make you happy, not just healthy.
So if I want to have a big bowl of pasta, I'll I'll have that bowl of pasta, but I'll try and nourish myself by adding like some silken tofu to the sauce for protein and like different veggies for fiber. So just kind of looking at it as like a 360 thing. So like just try and nourish your body where you can, but also like have the things you love. Like I know I do. So try not to be too strict.
So rather than removing everything you enjoy, add what your body needs. More protein, more plants, more fiber, more colour, more satisfaction, more enjoyment of the journey. Don't make yourself miserable because life is way, way, way too short. Why are you vegan?
A few reasons really. I've never really been a big meat eater. I've never eaten like beef or lamb or anything like that in my life. When I was about 18, I went pescatarian. And then I went vegetarian and then I went vegan. But the reason I went vegan is because I was having like some skin issues and I cut dairy out, and that was like the full whammy of being vegan. But beforehand, I guess like it's animal welfare for sure. Like I love animals and environmental reasons, but also just health reasons as well. And I guess like it did work for my skin, so I guess I've just never really gone back.
What I appreciated about Bonnie's answer is that she doesn't make it dogmatic. She says veganism works for her right now, but she also acknowledges that bodies change and needs can change, and that flowing state is really, really important. Don't put yourself in one box. Don't kind of categorize yourself. You might feel great following a certain diet at the moment, but that might not be your certain diet for life.
It is, and I feel like there's times in your life where you need different types of food. I feel like maybe if I'm having some children or something, then I might need eggs again and fish again, and they're really healthy foods. It's not that they're not healthy that I'm not eating them. I mean, eggs, I don't think I actually react that well with anyway.
This is such a helpful contrast to the extremes that we see online. One person says we should be vegan. Another says we should be carnivore. Another says they thrive on keto. That's okay, and they might. But you might like to dip your toe into different categories at different times of life.
I always had really good skin growing up. Like lots of my friends would have problems with their skin growing up, and that's quite normal, I guess, like being a teenager. And I just kind of swanned through with no problems. And then I hit 20, and literally almost overnight, I just had acne, like all around my mouth, on my jaw and things. And obviously that was really debilitating being a model at the time as well. Like I was just felt super like self-conscious going to work. It wasn't nice. And I didn't know anything about like how to fix it. So I just did all the topical things. It got worse. And then I decided to do some research and found out that like the best way to heal your acne is internally. And it's kind of what's got me to where I am now in terms of like being in the nutrition space and being in the wellness space, because so I guess I have to thank it. But I just kind of taught myself everything I know from like podcasts and research and healed it within.
Bonnie's journey with her skin shows that so clearly. Skin is a really, really interesting one, and it's very, very personal and can really, really affect your confidence. Sometimes the thing that feels like the worst part of your story actually becomes the reason you learn about your body in a better way. So Bonnie's story and journey with her skin actually led her to exploring her health more deeply.
I try and like eat really slowly now. I try and chew my food a lot more. I'll take like a big deep breath before I eat my meals, and like it genuinely helps. Like I feel like we don't chew our food enough. I know that sounds really simple, but we don't. Like we're supposed to apparently chew our food like 40 times before we swallow. And I don't do that, but
I don't do that either.
I don't do that, but I definitely chew it more than I used to, and I think it genuinely helps so much. I also take a probiotic in the morning, and that's really helped. With bloating in general. But
Bonnie also adds another layer. It's not just what you eat, it's how you eat. Now this is so important. Are you chewing? Are you breathing? Are you rushing? Are you eating in front of a screen? This part is really, really relatable because so many people think about what they eat, what's on their plate, but how you eat is also so important and can cause a lot of the digestion and bloating issues that a lot of us are feeling and seeing today. And my other one is like trying to eat without a screen in front of me. I'm feeling like I'm really, really feeling it. Like it's so bad.
It's hard.
It's so hard. I don't know why I find it so difficult, but I definitely notice if I have a screen whilst I'm eating, I'll finish my food and be like, I'm still hungry, but I don't think I am. I think it's because I've not been mindful when I've been eating. So for the last part of this compilation, I wanted to bring in someone that has seen the wellness space over 10 years. She's seen the extremes, she's seen the trends, veganism, all the superfood trends, milk trends, raw milk trends. She has seen it all. So the real question is, what actually lasts? And that is where we can bring in Madeleine Shaw, because her perspective is so valuable. Madeleine Shaw has been in the wellness industry for over 10 years. She's a qualified nutritionist, yoga teacher, cookbook author, and someone who has watched the entire online wellness space evolve. Now, what I loved about this conversation is that she has the experience to say trends will always change, but the fundamentals matter most. Her own journey started with IBS, stress, low energy, and learning how much food and lifestyle could change the way that she felt every day.
I grew up in London, and I guess I don't know, I was very social, went out a lot, went partying a lot from a very young age. My poor mother was not happy. And yeah, just loved it, but definitely didn't look after my health. Drank a lot of alcohol. It was like the era of like low fat. So it was like low fat yogurts, diet drinks, like that kind of, like everything had to be fat free. Yeah. And so I definitely ate a lot of like low fat foods, thinking that was really healthy. And then moved to Sydney and just started having like digestive, like lots of bloating, felt really uncomfortable. And I was like 19, 20. I was like, I should be at the prime of my life.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, got diagnosed and went to see this naturopath, and she was like, you need to completely change your diet. She was like, you need to start eating whole foods, eat more vegetables and fruits. She was like, you need to up your protein. Like, I literally was never really eating protein, like maybe here and there, but it just wasn't part of my diet. And just completely started to eat better. And then I started working at this gym that was like a gym and a cafe attached to each other in Bondi, and just started like falling in love with food and like cooking and eating, and just started to feel better. Like I felt like I woke up, I had no energy, I couldn't concentrate, had like foggy head, felt bloated, just felt rubbish. Like, and it wasn't like hungover rubbish, it was just like everyday rubbish.
Yeah.
And when I started to look after what I eat, I suddenly had like energy in the morning. I wanted to wake up. And I guess once you start getting into one thing, you kind of open your eyes into other things. So I started going to yoga a lot. I did this 40 days and 40 nights of yoga and meditation. And that got me really interested in like my mindset. And that was really helpful for me. I think I was never given any tools to manage stress. And I think, you know, inevitably, unfortunately, stress is part of our lives, whether it's created by ourselves or it's created by what's happening in our lives. And I think that was an amazing tool for me and really, really helped me.
Now, this is such a classic wellness turning point for so many people. You have a problem, you dive deeper, you solve the problem. But honestly, if you feel rubbish for long enough, you'll eventually work out that food is fuel and food will make you feel better. So for Madeleine, that change wasn't just food though. It was also stress, movement, managing stress, meditating, taking time, connecting with your body, listening to your body. This again goes back to the whole lifestyle piece. Food is such a small part of the overall puzzle.
I think because I've never been extreme, and I think, in my opinion, extreme doesn't work. It works maybe for a week, a month, 3 months, but long term it doesn't. And I think I've, on the whole, not excluded big food groups or elements. My food philosophy has always been about crowding in rather than cutting out. And I think having that positive mindset is what keeps you going long term. I think
one of the areas Madeleine and I spoke about is making it sustainable. This has got to be one of the most important messages. You may hear about different trends, try different trends, and extreme really does sell. And extreme sounds convincing and enticing and exciting, but extreme doesn't last. And if something only works when your life is perfect or for 1 week, then it's not real life and it's not real health.
My food philosophy has always been about crowding in rather than cutting out. Most people don't have to do that. Most people just need to eat a little bit better. And that might be just starting with their breakfast. I always think that's a really easy place to start. Sometimes we try and like you know, we go in our cupboards and we throw everything out and we like, we go like too gung-ho. I think just start with your breakfast and just add in protein to your breakfast. So like if you start your day with like toast and jam, swap the jam out for like 3 scrambled eggs or 3 boiled eggs, and that's going to keep you fuller for longer. Stop that dip at 11 a.m. and just be a really simple swap as well. It doesn't feel like you're making massive changes. And I think actually that's the way that you're going to build habits.
This is so practical. Don't start by throwing everything away and by making your life miserable with real extremes. Start with 1 meal at a time. Small baby steps, compounding those baby steps into something that is a whole new lifestyle shift and change. The best impact happens over time. It's like the hare and the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race.
That's literally one of the questions I've had forever, is like, oh, I went to a wedding and then I did this and this and this and I drank and I ate this and like, I was so good the week before. And it's like, our body copes, our body has detoxifying like qualities within it where it can cope with stress, it can cope with alcohol, it can cope with like food. Obviously too much of it isn't good, but it can cope. And I think, we can allow our body to go through that. And like if you had the best time with your friends, then like amazing, probably that happiness was like even better than like that good night's sleep.
Completely. That
and
memory you'll have them
exactly,
forever, and the pictures you'll smile at when you're feeling down, like
exactly, or you'll laugh to yourself or something. So I think we can't kind of think that like one moment blows out all the hard work that we've done previously. It's just not the way the body works. And like just because you've eaten like 3 slices of cake, it doesn't immediately show up on your hips. Like that's again not how the body works.
Sustainability also comes from making it work around the fun moments. If your healthy lifestyle makes you scared of weddings, birthdays and holidays, then that's not health. Health should help you live your life, not shrink it. Health should make you feel more confident in those moments, not scared and insecure in them. Wellness is about feeling well in every aspect of your life, during your busy periods and your calm periods. So if you are making changes that are restricting you in your life and lifestyle, that's also not healthy. That is fear. That is fear-mongering. That is not a healthy place to be, because fun and enjoyment is also a pillar that we have to focus on. So overall, I really hope you enjoyed these snippets from some people who give us a really well-rounded approach on what feeling good and healthy actually means. We can now see from all of these conversations, it's not all or nothing, and there's not one perfect diet. It's about what works for you, making small changes over time and thinking about the bigger picture. Thinking about movement as well as food, thinking about rest as well as movement. You've got to think about all the pillars, and you've got to think about your body and your lifestyle, what you enjoy eating, what you enjoy doing, how your lifestyle looks, and making it work for you. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed these conversations. Hopefully now you get an idea that there is definitely not a one size fits all, and hopefully now you can start listening to your body and making choices that work for you. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please click that follow and subscribe button wherever you're listening. It really helps the growth of the podcast. Every week we bring you a new episode, so make sure you click that button to be notified when our new episode goes live on Tuesday. Thank you guys so much again, and see you next week.